Curvature of indifference curves. Unless the indifference curve is a straight line, the marginal rate of substitution varies along the indifference curve. Because the indifference curve in the figure 3.4 is convex to the origin, as we move down and to the right along the indifference curve, the marginal rate of substitution, the slope of the indifference curve, becomes smaller in absolute value. Lisa will give up fewer burritos to obtain one pizza. This willingness to trade fewer burritos for one more pizza as we move down and to the right along the indifference curve reflects a diminishing marginal rate of substitution. The marginal rate of substitution approaches zero, becomes flatter or less sloped as we move from bundle F to E and then to G in the figure. We can illustrate the diminishing marginal rate of substitution for the Cobb-Douglas utility function. Capital U equals the square root of q sub 1 times q sub 2 equals q sub 1 to the power 0.5 multiplied by q sub 2 to the power 0.5. So A equals 0.5. We know that this utility function has an marginal rate of substitution equals negative q sub 2 over q sub 1 by setting A equal to 0.5 in equation 3.5. On the indifference curve, 4 equals capital U bar equals the square root of q sub 1 times q sub 2. Two of the open parentheses q sub 1 comma q sub 2 close parentheses bundles are open parentheses 2 comma 8 close parentheses and open parentheses 4 comma 4 close parentheses. The marginal rate of substitution is negative 8 over 2 equals negative 4 at open parentheses 2 comma 8 close parentheses and negative 4 over 4 at negative 1 equals negative 1 at open parentheses 4 comma 4 close parentheses. Thus, at open parentheses 2 comma 8 close parentheses, where the consumer has a relatively large amount of q sub 2 compared to q sub 1, the consumer is willing to give up 4 units of q sub 2 to get one more unit of q sub 1. However, at open parentheses 4 comma 4 close parentheses, where the consumer has relatively less q sub 2, the consumer is only willing to trade a unit of q sub 2 for a unit of q sub 1. So far, we have drawn indifference curves as convex to the origin. An indifference curve for two goods does not have to be convex, but casual observation suggests that most people's indifference curves are convex. When people have a lot of one good, they're willing to give up a relatively large amount of it to get a good of which they have relatively little. However, after the first trade, people are willing to give up less of the first good to get the same amount of the second good. It is hard to imagine that Lisa's indifference curves are concave to the origin. If her indifference curve were strictly concave, Lisa would be willing to give up more burritos to get one more pizza. The fewer the burritos she has. Two extreme versions of downward sloping convex indifference curves are plausible: straight line or right angle indifference curves.